In this video, we are going to do a full walkthrough of the building site example project. This is one of the examples that is loaded into your Documents folder when you install Kubla Cubed. We are going to be doing this example with on-screen takeoff, but we could achieve exactly the same thing by loading CAD files if we had them. We will cover the CAD file method in another walkthrough video. So we will start by having a quick look at what is in this example folder. There is a PDF file. It has 2 pages, one for each half of the site. There is also a CAD file here. I will only use the PDF in this video since I am demonstrating the on-screen takeoff only. So I start by launching the software. When doing on-screen takeoff, the first step is always to define the site plans that you need to take off from. The files that contain the site plans are usually in PDF format. However, Kubla Cubed supports various image file formats. So I click on Plans, Add Image PDF file. I choose the PDF. And you see that there are 2 pages here. I will load both of them one by one. I start with the first one. Now, the first and most important step when we load a site plan in Kubla Cubed is to set its scale. To set the scale, we click on the Scale button, and we see 2 options here. One is to type in the scale that is marked on the site plan, and the other is to use a scale bar or another marked length on the drawing. This drawing has a scale marked here, so I will use this option and I will type in the scale. Now, obviously, if the scale is wrong, then all volumes will be wrong. Therefore, never forget to check whether you have scaled correctly to see whether the software provides you the same value as the drawing. For example, here we can check the length of this marked length, whether the software will give us the same value, 340 feet. So I go to this end, I put the cursor here, I click on the letter M on my keyboard, and I hold it pressed until I go to the other end and see that it is by and large 340 feet, which means that I have scaled correctly. Now, in terms of site plan positioning, most of the time when you want to do on-screen takeoff, scaling is all you need to do. Now, since this drawing has 2 coordinates marked, one is here and one is here, I will also use the Move tool to geolocate my site plan. So I click here and I click on one of them at this point, and I will move this point to this known coordinate here. So I type in the easting and then the northing, and I will click OK. Now, this is totally optional for a takeoff example and obviously has no effect on the volumes. So if I have coordinates marked on the drawing and I use them to move the site plan to its real position, then the mouse displays the real coordinates everywhere. So as you can see here, it displays the coordinates of this point. If I do not have the coordinates, or if I do not use them to geolocate my site plan, then the mouse will obviously display arbitrary coordinates. So the next thing I want to do is I want to remove the title blocks here and the scale bar. So I will use the crop tool and I will go right here, click, and it's cropped. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to remove this gray shading here so that only the line work stays on my drawing, and this is very important because Kubla Cube shows the site plans on top of the terrain, so we need to be able to see past the plans to the ground below. So I click here and then here. Right, so I stop editing. And now I'm going to load the second page of the site plan and repeat the same steps. So I will scale again. It has the same scale. Click OK. And now I will use the move tool and I will move this point on page 2 of the site plan. I will move it to the respective point of page 1. So now I will crop again. So now we'll crop again the title bar and the scale bar. Now I will stop editing. Now my two plants are perfectly stitched together and geolocated as well. Finally, I want to show you these options on the site plans toolbar. You can edit, delete, hide, move down or move up. And you can hide and unhide by using the eye icon. So our existing ground is defined by these gray contour lines on the site plan, these here, and to define the existing ground from these gray contours in Kubla Cube as well, we make sure the existing tab is selected, and then we add a feature surface. Now for this existing surface, what we need to define is the outline and the contour lines. For the site outline, I will draw around the boundary of the site. Sometimes Kubla Cube users get confused when defining this phase because they assume that they have to draw the outline for the existing on top of the line that defines the limits of disturbance. So they think that the outline should be this one. This is not the case, and it is absolutely fine for your existing ground to extend the limits of disturbance. So I'm going to draw the boundary for the site according to the area that is included within these 4 points here, even though a part of it is not earthworks related like this one here. So I click on this button, then we'll click on draw, and then choose the extrapolate option, which is almost always the case to define the existing ground. What the extrapolate option does is taking the levels of the features inside the outline to define the levels of the outline itself. In this case, it takes its levels from the contour line levels I'm about to draw. So I begin drawing, I click on each vertex, here, and then I right click or press enter to finish. Right. Now I'm going to draw my contours. It is similar to drawing the outline, how you draw the contours, except for the fact that after you finish every line, you type in the level in order to complete it. So I am going here and I will start drawing my contour lines. So I'm starting here. I want to be very precise so that my ground is very accurate. Right, in order to complete, you right click and then you type in the level and click enter and you go to the next. If I make a mistake, if I go here, then with backspace I can always correct and do it again. And you can repeat it as many times as you need to. Now, after completing the first contour line, you will see this text appearing here. It gives you the opportunity to press the up and down key in order to derive the contour level from the previous one you've typed. This can be really helpful and save you a lot of time where your site runs up or down a slope, as this one does. So the software will guess the increment here, but you can click and overtype it if it's not correct. In our case, the 1 foot is wrong because it should be half a foot. So I correct it. And then I go here and click the up arrow, and now I have my correct level, and I click on enter and I continue to the next one. So I'm almost done. This is the second to the last. And this is the last. Right. So I'm finished. Now that I've completed all my contour lines and along with the outline, this is all I need to define my existing levels. So I am going to click on the OK button and the software will generate a surface. Now this is the existing ground from these levels. Right, so we almost always need to strip topsoil from our site before we do our bulk earthworks phase. So I will rename this phase to topsoil stripping. And I will add a strip element. If I'm stripping the whole of the existing ground, I usually draw a big box around everything, since the software will only calculate where it has existing ground levels. Some people draw carefully around the boundary with their strip. However, this creates extra work and it also creates small artifacts where the two boundary lines don't quite match. For this reason, drawing a big box like this is not only quicker, but also makes a cleaner surface for the next phase. So I right-click to finish, and I will set the strip depth to 6 inches, so I type in half foot. And if I had different depths of strip, I could use a number of the strip elements in this phase, which would cover different parts of the terrain. And you see on the left side of the screen that the software displays the volumes of strip material in a table. So to define our finished ground levels, I will make a new phase. And our finished ground levels in this project are defined with contours, just like for the existing. So these are the contours. All these here are contours of the proposed. And we also have 2 break lines at the edge of the road, and this is the outline that defines the area of disturbance. Now, this is the case when we are defining our proposed surface. The limits of the outline are the limits of the area of disturbance. So again, I'm gonna create a feature surface, and I'm gonna use this pop-up window so that I can discard the gray shading and that I can see what I'm drawing. The contours were not very visible before, so I click here and I'm gonna choose the draw and like the use ground levels option, because the level of the outline we are drawing is that of the meeting of the earthworks of the existing ground levels. So I will start to draw my outline. I want to be very precise. Right, so I'm almost done. Just a few more points. And here, here, and I right click and click on finish. Right, so now I have defined my outline. Just like for the existing, I will draw my contour lines. Right, so I click on this button and I zoom in to one of the ponds and I start drawing in detail. I can correct all this by clicking backspace. Okay, so I right click to finish and then I tick on closed, type in the level and click enter. And I continue the second. And repeat exactly the same procedure. So I am about to finish. Right, so now that I'm done with my contour lines, I'm gonna start drawing my break lines. I will define a break line first to define the edge of the road. A break line is a hard edge, but with varying levels. I need to use the break line drawing option to tell the software that the angle of the terrain changes with this line. And you can always define levels along with your break line if you have them. However, since the software provides the option that makes each break line take the levels from any contour lines it crosses, I'm going to use this option, and I'm not going to enter any levels here. So I'm gonna start drawing the first break line. I click here. I'm gonna zoom in. So I click on the first point, and then I press on enter on my keyboard, and then on the second point, and then again enter, and so and so. So now I complete. I click on finish. Now to show the effect of this break line, I will click OK, and the software will generate the surface. Now if we go into 3D mode, you can see that this side of the road has a hard edge, here, and if I exaggerate a bit, whereas this side doesn't. So I'm gonna return here and then go to 2D, and I will go back into editing. And I will draw the second break line. Right, so I complete and then finish, and now I click OK again. OK again. Right, so if I go into 3D view now, you can see that both sides of the road look correct, and my finished levels now are very well defined. So I will rename this phase Finished Levels. Now the final step on most projects is to define paving depths. The drawing usually shows finished levels, and these need to be reduced to subgrade levels to get our earth volumes. There are a couple of ways to do this, but we are going to use the stripping method. This is when you use strip elements in the same phase to reduce the levels of the pavement thicknesses. So we have two construction depths in this project. Although they are not marked on these drawings, we will add a strip element and draw around the boundary of this area here. And I will start from here. So I set the depths to the value I want, which is 6 inches. And I normally set the side slopes for construction depths to be vertical, so I will turn my sand butter off. And I name it paving type 1. Now I will draw the second area. It is best to snap points where these two areas meet so that the edges match exactly. So I will make sure that my snap settings are switched on to boundary points. And they are. So I find the second strip. And again, my side butter I want it to be off. And I will rename this to paving type 2. So now that I have drawn these paving thicknesses as strip elements, I can go into the 3D view. Now I see the subbase levels. Now the volumes presented in the software will now be to those subbase levels and will not include paving volumes. So that was a walkthrough of how to create the building site example using on-script takeoff. Thank you for watching. For further questions, please visit our website.